Hi Year 7, it's Mr. Palmer, just making a short video to help you finish the last few components of your portfolio for our timber product, your acoustic speaker. So I've just got our document open, the timber woodwork workbook, and I'm going to take you through a couple of sections and what you can do to fulfill the requirements for each one. So I'm looking at the record of production. And what I wanted you to do for the record of production originally was we were going to take photos in class of the different processes, but I've changed it up a bit and I have uploaded a bunch of photos to Edmodo, as you can see here, which represent different stages of making the acoustic speaker. Now, what that means is I want you to, in your portfolio, pick 5 different processes, so 5 different pictures, and write a description of each process. So I've done an example one here, and in the photo you can see I've got the blank bit of timber, the T-square and the rule, and I said to begin the process of making the acoustic speaker, we were given 950 millimeters of radiata pine. Using a tri-square and a rule, we mark a straight edge for all measurements to be taken. Each piece was 300 millimeters long, with a 10 mil gap left between pieces to allow for cutting with a tenon saw. Now, for the record of production, all I want you to do is mention things like the tools involved, some of the guidance for what you're actually doing, and then any specific safety precautions for that process. So if you pick drilling with the hole saw or cutting with the tenon saw, you might give some guidance or some pointers, things like using a pistol grip when holding the saw, or the power stance while sawing to get a better push. Okay, that is for the record of production. Now, if we go back a bit and we go up a bit higher, I actually don't want you to do the orthographic drawing, as we haven't had time to go through that in class and it's a bit more complicated. Saying that if you wanted to give it a go, I'm more than happy for you to sketch it by hand and paste a photo of what you've drawn and put it in here. Further up, we have the sketches. Now, I know we didn't do this in the exact same order, but what I would like you to do here is draw some different sketches of the features and design that you wanted, or on some different variations of an acoustic speaker. Now, that is entirely up to you. You can be a bit creative. As you can see here with the motorbikes, there's some slightly different drawings of different options or different shapes. You can do the same thing with the acoustic speaker. So again, draw it on a piece of paper, use a camera or a phone to take a picture, and then paste your picture into the timber workbook. The last thing I want you to do is probably the hardest one, which is the evaluation. Now, for the evaluation, what it says is testing and evaluation are a crucial part of the process. It allows for the designer or engineer to reflect on the building process of their product. Additionally, it can be used to say what things worked and what didn't. So in the production, we can make sure we avoid these next time. Now, what I've got here is a scaffold for how I would like you to write it. So it says an evaluation requires you to make a judgment or decision about the success of your project. In your evaluation, you could reflect on the design brief and discuss whether you have achieved the criteria outlined in the design brief. So what I've done is, I know we wrote our design briefs in class, but I've come up with 2 categories. So one is the functional criteria and one is the aesthetic criteria, so things to do with how it looks. So the functional criteria for the acoustic speaker that you could talk about, does it work as a speaker and amplify the sound? So you could test this at home if you have your speaker with you. You could put the phone in there and see if it actually amplifies the sound coming out of your phone. Next one is, does it work without electricity? Now, that should be a fairly simple one to answer. And then, can it be taken outside the house? So will it survive if you were to put it out in your backyard, or is it loud enough when you take it outside? They could be all criteria that you look at saying yes or no, and then how you've come to that realization. It could be you've gone outside and tested it. Could be that one of the negatives might be your phone doesn't fit with a case on, okay? So all these are to do with how it actually functions as a speaker. Does it sit flat on the table? Now, the aesthetic criteria, they are all to do with how the speaker looks. So with this, you could talk about what appearance did you have in mind? Was there a specific shape or features you wanted to add? So this could have been curved ends, beveled edges, making it look like a robot head. Sorry, not heat. Some of you had very specific. It could be the images you wanted to put on it. It could have been parts that you wanted to laser cut. You could also look at the quality of the joints and skills you applied. So are there any gaps or damaged parts of your job? Any modifications we had to make to cover an error, or that we put in place to hide something that happened by accident? And then the last one, how was the finish of the surface? So did you paint, poker burn, or laser cut on your design? Is it smooth? Is it rough on the edges? Do all your holes line up? So that is all to do with how it looks, and you can make a judgment about whether you think it was successful or not. Now, when you make a judgment, it means whether it's good or bad, essentially, but you need to do this with evidence. So evidence could be the marks you got, the appearance and your observations, feedback from students or parents or yourself. It could be observations I made or comments I made about your job. Now, just to give you an example of what a paragraph for it might look like, I've written this example one talking about robot head inspiration for my design. So I've said, when designing my acoustic speaker, my intention was to create a speaker that resembles the shape of a robot's head. To create the illusion of a robot head, I cut 45-degree angles on the edge of timber using a router and cut off the corners of the shape to make the head look more like a hexagon. So at the moment, I'm kind of providing my evidence for what I did to make it look like the robot. So this created a boxy design more closely resembling a robot head. The addition of a timber piece on the top and the painting the surface also helped to create more of a robotic look. Now, with all that, I'm starting to make judgments, and I'll highlight it in a second, where exactly the judgments are coming in. This is my big final sentence where I'm stating how successful it was. I believe that my final design successfully reflects the concept that I outlined in my design brief. The final product is easily recognizable as the robot from WALL-E due to its distinct shape and coloring. So this might be an example of a paragraph that comes into place in the middle here. So I'm specifically focusing on an aesthetic thing, so what the appearance looks like. Now, you might do another paragraph on the function, okay? Now, if you're writing 4 paragraphs overall, you're doing very well, okay? This is the general structure. So my first sentence states the direction of the paragraph. So it's my topic sentence. So I'm outlining what I'm going to talk about. So creating a speaker that resembled the shape of a robot head. In these next couple of sentences here, I'm talking about and expanding on this. So I'm talking about how I made the robot head, what I did to specifically create features that resemble a robot. Down the bottom here, I'm making a judgment. So my judgment is, and my evidence is, that it looks like the WALL-E robot head. Now, for other things like how smooth it is, it could be touch. It could be that you've asked your parents what they think. It could be that I gave you some positive feedback as your evidence. Now, for your portfolio overall, once you are complete, you should have done the following sections. So at the very start, we did the design scenario and design brief. So up here, you had to outline the problems that you had to solve. And that came from this paragraph here about Mr. Davis. Further down, we had our design brief. So this was you specifically outlining how you intended to solve the problem. So were there any specific design criteria you wanted, shape, functions, and you talked about things that might affect your success level. You had to do the research, so defining terms, looking at existing designs from Google, and there are quite a few out there. You then have to do the sketches. You don't have to worry about orthographic drawings. And then you do the record of production and evaluation. Okay. Just a reminder that this task is due before the end of the term, so the due date is on Edmodo. If you click on the actual assignment, which is back here, it says due date 4th of the 6th. Now to access your assignment, if you click on it and go view assignment, you can actually look at under your name. If you click on the file, you'll be able to see what you've actually done, and you can keep adding to that document. Okay. If you're having any problems with the assignment, please send me a message so that I can help you. You can either do that through Edmodo or send me a message straight on the student portal. Otherwise, enjoy. Bye.